So I'm Cynthia Becker, and I'm the host of the reality series CPS the Horror Stories. I'm not an attorney or a social worker, but I am a mom who lost her kids to CPS a couple years ago, and after 2 years of fighting, I did get my kids back. We still struggle with PTSD and anxiety and all of the things that you suffer from when you deal with CPS. I don't believe that CPS is about protecting children. I believe that it's about the dollar signs that they get from each child that they remove. So, Cheyenne, is that how I pronounce your name?
Yes.
Okay. Can you introduce yourself? Tell me where you're from and about you.
So my name is Cheyenne. I'm 26 years old. I have lived between Southern California and Northern California, but Napa, California is pretty much where I've landed and where most of my story is. So I moved to Napa for good when I was 5 years old. My parents had split up. CPS has been a part of my story since a child. Mom, if you're watching this, I love you. Don't take anything personally, but my mom had a hard time being a parent to me and my younger sibling, who is now unfortunately in prison. CPS had been called numerous times when we were children, but it always seemed that they never really did anything to change the situation that we were in. I won't get too much into details about my childhood, but I'll just say that it was a vicious cycle of drug addiction and domestic violence on my parents' part.
Can we actually, do you mind if we
actually want to go a little bit into it?
Yeah, I do. I want to start there because, it's rare, more rare that I get, well, it's actually more common that CPS's involvement as an adult. They usually have CPS as a child in their lives, but it's not everybody likes to talk about it. So if you're willing to talk about it, I'd like to kind of hear how and why they were involved in your life.
So when my mom moved to Napa, so she was a domestic violence survivor herself, which led her to her addiction. You know, it's a vicious cycle that happens in families from generation to generation, unfortunately. Domestic violence and drug addiction, it comes hand in hand. So when she moved to Napa, she ended up getting involved into drugs and ended up finding a relationship with my dad's younger brother. And so that was really hard for us growing up, seeing my mom be with my uncle and later on have a child with him, and just, you know, they were really involved into drugs. They had a lot of friends over. We were exposed to a lot of fighting.
What was the drug of choice?
It was meth, mainly meth. As a child, CPS would be called from my school, just because my mom she would drop me off yelling at me, or because of the way we were dressed. You know, other parents from the school would call CPS. They would show up to the house, and I do remember as a child going down to the office and talking about, to a social worker about things, but I don't remember anything ever being done.
I'm listening.
Yeah, so so there are even social workers that I had dealt with as an adult that remembered me from being a child, and everything that I had gone through. So, yeah.
Why did you say you had to go to the office?
Because my mom had checks to her house, welfare checks for domestic violence and drug use, or for my younger brother and I being neglected.
Okay. And so were they just coming to the school to check on you?
They came to the house to do welfare checks a few times. We had gone down to the office and they had questioned us, my younger brother and I, as children, but that's the extent that I remember things getting to. I do think that maybe if they would have intervened when I was a child and maybe actually put some maintenance into my family, that my story would have been a lot different, even as an adult. You know, where was the therapy for my mother and I? Why weren't they offering her services for things? You know, I know they were coming into the household seeing that it was dirty, you know, so this was back in the 90s, early 2000s.
Now, so were you ever removed or no?
I was never removed. Actually, my mom ended up sending me to my father's house when I was 10 years old. because I was just getting in the way of her relationship. She became pregnant with my dad's brother's child. So yeah, I had another sibling on the way, and my mother and I's relationship was not good. We were butting heads a lot. She was really abusive to me as a child. I was acting out as a 10-year-old girl wanting attention from my mom that I wasn't getting. So yeah.
Did was there ever any kind of abuse that happened?
Yeah, once my mom sent me away to live with my father. My father had actually sexually abused me, and I did not come out and tell my mom about it until I was 16. But then again, if CPS would have intervened and maybe put some maintenance into my life as a child, I wouldn't have had to be sent off with my father, who was a criminal and a drug addict himself, and was in no state to have a teenage girl.
Wow, I'm sorry. Then you mentioned that your sibling is in prison?
Yeah, so my sibling, he's 3 years younger than me, and now he's in prison for mental health issues. It's pretty much what it surrounds itself is mental health issues, and that is from being a child and everything that we've gone through. He's serving a pretty big term right now.
What's the reasoning, if you don't mind?
Well, a couple of years ago, he's been in and out of institutions since a child. Started with juvenile hall, went to group homes, now in prison, and it's mental health. A couple years ago, he stood on an overpass and was threatening to jump, so they ended up locking him up for that. He got out and violated his probation, so he went back into jail and ended up grabbing a police officer's gun in the Sally Port, wanting to commit suicide by cop. So it all boils down to his mental health issues, which came from him being a child and the abuse that we had gone through then.
Okay, wow. So how long have you been married?
I've been married for 2 years now. My husband's wonderful. Ugh, I get choked up. The life that I have now is something I dreamed about as a child. From day one, I just wanted to give my kids a family. And I thought that the environment that I had them in was normal, based off of what I grew up in. So, what I have now is what I dreamed about since a child. And I live a simple life. I'm not rich. I don't have a fancy car, a fancy house, but I have my kids and I have a family and I have love and I have support and I have a drug-free environment, a violence-free environment. Mm-hmm. It's a dream come true, what I had always wanted as a child. So I get really emotional about it because, I'm pretty much now living a dream to me.
So tell me about your kids.
So, I have 4 boys. I have a 7-year-old. I have a 6-year-old. I have an 18-month-old. His name's Khaled, and a 2-month-old. His name is Ray. My younger 2 are in my care. I have never had a CPS report, CPS case, anything. They're very well taken care of, very happy children. My older 2, unfortunately, are adopted by their paternal grandmother, and that is why I'm here today, to tell my story of why they're there and why I still do not have them in my life.
So let's talk about the first time CPS came in your life as a mom.
Okay, so as a mom, so I had my kids very young. I first became pregnant at 18, and I decided to keep my baby despite my immature thinking. I was not financially or mentally ready to be a mother. I was struggling a lot, but I still decided to keep my child in hopes and knowing that I had it in me to be a good mother. I had a choice at that time to either live with my mom in her 2-bedroom apartment with my siblings, which was a very toxic environment, or stay with my children's father, who was homeless, and stay in motel rooms with him. So when my child was first born, his father actually spit in my face in the hospital room and told me that the child wasn't his because he was swollen when he was born, because we had caught an infection. I couldn't dilate past a 7, so it was an emergency C-section. So their father's very immature. He spit in my face in front of his mother, who kind of laughed it off and let it go. It was obvious to the nurses and the staff that there were issues with the family. So a social worker actually came to speak to me that day in the hospital and see if I was safe to go home because of the arguments that had been going on in the hospital. So after that, they ended up letting me go home. When I got home, my children's father...
Did you feel safe?
At that time, deep down, I wanted to speak up. I wanted to share. I wanted to let them know that I did not feel safe. But what did that lead to? Me not being able to take care of my child and them taking my child away. Right. You know, so I just felt like I had to do what was right. I did not feel safe. He was very abusive to me. It developed in my pregnancy. He developed a meth addiction and started becoming very physically abusive with me.
Wow.
And so yeah, so once the first night home from the hospital, we stayed the night at his parents' house. They ended up letting us stay the night. The second night home, I went back home with my mother. Right when I had got home, I got into a small disagreement with my children's father, and he punched a hole in the bedroom door at my mom's house. So my mom called the police on him. At that point, CPS came to the house, and that's when my case first started. So let's see, I'm trying not to get lost in the story because there's so much information. There's just so much that has happened.
You go ahead, and I'm going to listen, and then I will bring us back to the points that are either confusing or I need more details on. How's that?
Okay, perfect. So I continued. I stayed at my mom's. He had left for a while. You know, like I said, at my mom's house, it was toxic too. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. It was my mom, my 2 younger brothers, myself, and my baby. So it wasn't a good place for us. So I ended up leaving with the father again. He was given $40,000 when he turned 18. And instead of housing his family, because he's Native American, so instead of housing his family or doing anything that a father should, he spent it on drugs and tattoos and motel rooms. And so I ended up leaving with him to go to a motel because it was not good for me to be where I was with my mom, who we were fighting and everything. So, you know, I was back and forth between the two. I understand at the time I could have gone to a shelter, but I was 18 years old with mental health issues and being abused myself. And my mental health would not allow me to be alone at that point. I already felt so alone. I could not go to a homeless shelter with all of these different people that are strangers, you know. So, yeah. So we were in motels. So one day at 5 o'clock in the morning, the cops come. They knock on the motel room door. My children's father goes to open the door because he thinks it's just the people asking for the rent for another night. Well, as he opens the door, he sees it's the police, and he throws a jar of weed at me, and it falls all over the bed, all over the floor. I'm sitting in the bed holding a baby. We had a pit bull puppy who was also with us. He had a puppy who was also with us. And so the weed spilled all over the bed and the floor. So when the cops come in, what do they see? They see me sitting on the bed with weed everywhere. And a pit bull puppy that tore up a phone book while we were sleeping and went to the bathroom on the floor on a potty pad. So the police come in and they end up arresting us for possession of marijuana and child neglect for the marijuana being in reach of the child. But my son was only 2 months old at the time, so he wasn't crawling. So I don't see how the marijuana was in reach of him.
And this was in the state of California, right?
Yes, this was in the state of California. We got arrested in Solano County in Dixon.
So isn't weed, not that it's right or whatever,
yeah,
but isn't weed legal?
At the time, it was not legal yet.
Okay.
And my children's father even had a medical card. So after we were arrested and they removed my child, and we went to court later on, the DA never picked up the charges. They were dropped completely. So there was truly no evidence that I ever neglected my child. You know, the case didn't go through. The charges were never picked up. So was my child returned to me? No, he was not. At the time, I was already pregnant again, and I didn't know it. So I was booked into jail, my child taken away from me in that situation, already a couple weeks pregnant, and I didn't know. I found out a week or two later. So they removed my child. I called the paternal grandmother, and I did ask her for help. I did ask her to take my child in because I did not want my kid to go into a foster home where I didn't know the people.
Right.
So she ended up taking my child. He was not registered Native American at the time, but they ended up getting him registered so that way he could stay with the paternal grandmother. So time goes on, I'm pregnant, the dad is in and out of jail. I go back to my mom's house because he's running the streets on drugs.
How old is the father?
He is the same age as me, 18, 19 at the time. So June comes around, June of 2013. I'm pregnant, I'm sober, I'm working my classes, doing what I got to do to try to get my son back. The dad is not doing anything that he's supposed to do.
When you say you're sober, what were you using?
My drug of choice was marijuana. I never dipped into meth until I lost my kids for good. Then I went deep and spiraled into an addiction when they took my children away for good. And that will come later on in my story. You'll see what situation led me to that. But I was always the person when people were on drugs or bring them around that I'd be yelling at them, get away from me. I didn't want that around me. Why? Because how it affected me as a child. So June of 2013 comes around, and I go to see my children's father. We go on a drive to talk, and he ends up beating the shit out of me in the car. He beat me black and blue. I was 5 months pregnant. He drove me around and wouldn't let me out of the car. I saw a friend that was passing, walking down the sidewalk as he had me in the car, and I banged on the window and screamed to her, call 911, I need help. So she called the police, and there was, they were out, a bolo out, they were looking for the vehicle. And he ended up bringing me to his mom's house, who has my child at the time, is fostering him. And he, I also before this, I got out of the car and started running because we were out in the middle of nowhere. I got out of the car and started running. He got out, parked the car, chased me, tore my clothes, and tried dragging me back into the vehicle. So we show up to his mother's house, she's totally an enabler of him. And she's fostering my child at the time. And, she brings me out a change of clothes and tells me to quit crying, quit being a pussy when the cops come, to hide my clothes, to hide it so that her son doesn't go to jail. Well, he ends up dropping me off. So I called my mom for help. I called the police, let them know where I was. I filed charges. I put a restraining order, and the police go and find my clothes, my torn up clothes, by a church. They stashed them over there. And yeah, so then he gets also a charge for tampering with evidence. So I told CPS, I came in with the pictures. I was black and blue. I had a black eye. I had a bruise on my thigh this big from him punching me over and over again, and me holding my thigh up, trying to protect myself, protect my stomach from him hitting me in the stomach. And I went to CPS and I told them what happened. I told them that their mother was involved, but yet nothing was done. My child was still placed with her because he's Native American. They didn't want to touch that portion. It seems like they don't want to mess with the tribe. So he goes to jail later on. He goes on the run. What was that?
They're just lazy, period.
Yeah, exactly. They just don't want to deal with it. It's easier for them to not deal with it and just collect the funds. And so, yeah, he goes to jail. I continue to work my case plan, get my shit together. I gave birth to my child. I was alone when I gave birth. He was in jail. My mom cut my son's umbilical cord. I'm still living at my mom's house. Now, CPS knows damn well that my mom's house is not a good place for me to be, but they're still approving for me to bring my newborn child home there instead of offering to house me in another facility to help me get on my feet and get my own place to live. So I had my child. I gave birth to him. A couple months later, the father gets out of jail. My stupid thinking, I take responsibility for the fact of he's changed. He served jail time now. He's not going to put hands on me anymore. We get an apartment together. So CPS gives me a case plan. Okay, you guys are getting back together. That's fine. You're still keeping custody of your newborn. You're on the right track to reunifying with your oldest child. But if there's any abuse or drug use in the home, you need to follow this case plan, Cheyenne, which is A, B, and C. And if any of these red flags show, you leave. And you can still keep your child as long as you leave. But if you don't leave, then your child will be removed from you. So a couple months passed. I'm sitting in the living room with my child, my children's father. We're on the right track. We're visiting. We're doing our classes. We're staying sober. And he has a couple friends over. I'm in the living room taking care of my baby. I walk in to the bedroom and he's got a meth pipe in his hand. So they're smoking meth in the house with me and my child in the living room while I'm unaware. So I called my mom to come pick me and my child up. I packed our belongings. And I called my social worker and I said, hey, look, this is what happened. I'm done. I'm not going back. Me and my child are leaving. We have a safe place to go. I'm going to my uncle's house. And she goes, okay. My social worker says, okay, that's fine. But just come down to the office so that we can make sure that you guys are safe and in a good state of mind. I'm like, okay, that's fine. You know, we'll come check in with you. But you're not going to take my baby, right? No, I'm not going to take your baby away from you. I promise. I just want to make sure you guys are good. You did the right thing by following your case plan. My mom and I show up to the CPS office, and 4 police officers pry my baby from my arms as I'm standing up on a chair begging them not to. Please don't take my baby. I did the right thing. I left. I didn't put him in harm's way. My mom had to witness it, and we still have PTSD from this day because CPS lied to me to get me down there and take my baby away from me. And that's just something that you'll never recover from. No. You know, we were sleeping one night and a random person came and knocked at my door at 2:00 in the morning, and I jumped out of bed and almost had a heart attack because I thought it was CPS or the cops coming to my door to take my kids. Even though I know that I'm doing good and there's nothing that they can do to take my children, I have that PTSD now.
Of course. I still have it, and it's been over 2 years, and I'm still afraid. If I don't know, I usually know who's coming over, but if there's a knock on my door and I'm not sure who it is, I freak out and I tell don't touch the door. You know, yeah. I will see who it is.
Yeah, I'm already on guard, already on fight mode. And, you know, my husband tells me you need to relax sometimes. My house is so sparkling clean 24/7 because I just have that fear that anything can happen, and I shouldn't have to live like this. I should be able to be normal, you know, and just have a normal house, you know, and not have to constantly feel this anxiety all the time, because in reality, you know, like I said before, I take responsibility for the bad choices that I make, but at the same time, what do you expect out of an 18-year-old battered woman? You know, I did the best with what I thought I had, you know. Yeah. So I had my child taken away from me.
Now, just you said at that time you had 1 kid and you were pregnant, right?
Yes.
Okay. How long were you?
Well, at this point, I had my baby already. He was a newborn. The CPS let me keep my newborn when he was born. Then when I came in and I caught the father smoking drugs in the house, whatever, they took my newborn away because they said that I wasn't putting him in a safe place, but at the same time, they told me that if I followed my case plan, they wouldn't take him away from me. So this was March of 2013. So at this time, they had both of my babies. One was a toddler and one was a newborn, 2, 3, 4 months old, still small. And so let me catch up. There's so much information. Okay, so at that point, I was done with the father. I let him go. I was done with him for good. Once they took my kid, I worked my case plan. Okay, so I had my child removed from me in March in 2013. By April 2014, he already had another child on the way with somebody else. So I let him be. I let him live his life. The whole time, he still had access to my kids because his mom has them. So
tell me the months again.
So I had my child removed from me in March 2013, and by April, my child was only about 3 months old. By April it's not 2013, it was 2014. So by April 2014, a month later, he already had somebody else pregnant. Sorry, the years are so close together that I get them confused. So correct me if I'm confusing you a bit.
That's fast.
Yeah, so he had another child on the way already. I let him be. I just worked my case plan. I went to rehab actually for marijuana just because CPS asked me to. I don't look at marijuana as a drug. I look at marijuana as something that helps people that don't want to be on medication, that have anxiety or depression disorder. So, you know, but I just did what they wanted me to because They asked me to. I jumped through all the hoops. I was doing what I need to. Now, my kids are both placed with the paternal grandmother at the time. And he never lost access to them. There's pictures that she would meet him at stores, meet him at her house. They went on a trip to Tahoe. And I'm calling CPS the whole time. I'm giving them proof. I'm giving them pictures. Everybody in the community knows, and they're seeing that he is still having access to my children, and CPS doesn't do a damn thing about it. So I work my case plan. I do everything I need to do to get my kids back. I'm on unsupervised visiting at this point. I'm on overnights. I stayed out of a relationship for a year. Then I decided to get in a relationship again. Now, the person that I was dating, I was this close to having my kids back. The person that I was dating was in recovery as well. He went through some of his own personal stuff, and he decided to relapse. So the day that he relapsed, I knew that he relapsed. I broke it off with him.
Recovery for what?
Meth and heroin. He had relapsed on opiates. So he had relapsed. That day, I broke it off with him. I said, I can't be with you. I'm working on getting my kids back. You had relapsed. I have to let you go. That night, he overdosed, and he passed away. And CPS found out about it. And all that hard work that I had done went right out the window. They said that I was still not choosing to have healthy people in my life. So they told me I could not get my kids back now. Because, without even knowing the facts of the whole situation of the story, they completely terminated my rights and gave them for customary tribal adoption. Gave them to the tribe. Now, I lost it at this point. I lost it completely. All that hard work that I had just done to get my babies back, all the abuse that I had been through, all the pain that I had been through, just out the window because somebody else dies of a drug overdose. So we have a meeting with the tribe. My mom comes, and the tribe sits down, and we have a case plan for the customary tribal adoption. Now, part of that case plan is I will be able to send my children gifts and school supplies. And that I will have visitation twice a year for an hour each. Sorry, I have a bunch of people messaging right now because it's really big right now. I have a whole bunch of people in my community petitioning to try to get me visitation with my children. So I have a bunch of people on my side. It's a big movement right now. Hashtag reunify Pena boys with their mother. So I will have visitation twice a year for an hour each. So I have visitation, but I have to do A, B, and C for a case plan. So I'm 90% done with that case plan. I've done everything. I've graduated rehab. I've gone to anger management classes. I've done my domestic violence. I'm 4 years clean and sober. I'm not in a domestic violent relationship. I have 2 other kids that I have no CPS report on. They're healthy. They're happy. They're beautiful children. I've in the time that this has all happened, I've owned a business. I actually run a mommy support group on Facebook. I'm a mentor to a lot of women. So I've completely done a whole freaking 360 with my life. And as I've said before, at this whole time, the father still has access to the children whenever he's doing good. He'll go weeks where he does good and he gets to have phone calls or visits, whatever. So I'm calling the tribe. Currently right now, this is what I'm going through. I'm calling the tribe to ask, where's my visitation? I'm 90% done with my case plan. I'm not dishing out any more money to do any more classes until we have a meeting and we get all on the same page. And they're ignoring me. They will lead me on, and then they ignore me.
How long has your case been going?
Well, I haven't seen my kids. It's been 5 years. They were taken away when they were babies. And this whole 5 years, I have 4 years clean. So for a year of that, I was in addiction. I fell far into addiction after the person I was seeing died. Not only that, they ripped my kids away from me completely because he died. So yes, I did fall into addiction myself. And how ironic that I was handed an apartment right after that happened. I got my own place to live. If they would have reunified me with my kids, my story would be so different. I had my own place to live just in time to reunify.
I don't know if you've heard my story, but one thing I've said over and over again, I've never been on drugs. never been high or anything, and I used to be unintentionally, unconsciously a judgmental person.
Yeah.
When my kids were taken, it was the first time I knew exactly how somebody could use drugs or alcohol to numb the pain.
It's just not me. That lifestyle is not me. I didn't want that for me. I didn't want that for my kids. But at that point, I was suicidal. I had a death wish.
Yeah.
And I wasn't stopping until that was complete. By the grace of God, I am here today. By the grace of God, I went through so much when I was in my addiction. And that I am very, very, very blessed to be here and speaking and telling my story today.
It's literally like a part of your body is being removed and you're expected to still survive. You're expected to, there's not even another example of how to explain the pain that you go through and then the expectation that's on us.
I don't know if anybody had ever thought about postpartum depression, but I'll tell you that I was going through postpartum depression times 2. On top of being a victim of domestic violence, on top of just really so badly wanting so badly a family, just a family. That's it. And I tried to create it myself, going about the wrong way. So that's why I get so emotional when I talk about where I'm at today, because it's my dream. It might be a simple life, but this is my dream right here, and I'm only missing one piece. I need my babies. I just want to hold them again. So in the meantime of all of this, okay, so they're living with their paternal grandma. In the meantime of all of this, their grandma has had numerous CPS reports on her. The school is called CPS on her. People saying that she's not feeding them. The dad's other girlfriend had a point where she was my friend, and she told me that she verbally abuses my kids, and she leaves them with their teenage aunt all the time to pretty much raise them.
She's not feeding them, or she?
Yeah, that she doesn't feed them. Like, she'll give them little, pretty much feeding them like a mouse or like a bird. So her daughter is a very big girl, and she fat shames her daughter. And so I feel like it's probably part of what she's doing with my kids, trying to control their weight situation. She's not a very nice woman. I'll just tell you that. She's not a very nice woman at all. So, but
how many kids does she have?
She has 2. So her son is a piece of work. She's enabled him his whole life. Never had consequences for nothing. He should have been on medication and went through therapy as a child, but my kid doesn't need that type of thing, just kind of overlooked all of his mental health issues. My kid's father has got severe mental health issues. He's currently on the streets. Yeah, it's pretty bad. So she is in no right, shape, or form. So should be raising my kids. I do appreciate her for taking them in, and they're not in a foster home. And
how old is she?
She's in her 40s, but she acts like she's 20.
How many people live in the home?
It's her daughter, and my 2 children.
How old is the daughter?
She's 18 now.
Do you happen to know if there's any abuse going on?
So I actually just surfaced a picture of my son in 35-degree weather, wearing no socks, shorts, and a t-shirt, sent to school, while everybody else around him is wearing jackets, looking cold, wearing scarves. So there's people in the community that see this crap and take pictures and send to me. There's all kinds of crap going on in the home. But beyond that, the fact, I want to see my kids, and I have every right that I should be able to see my kids. They're in the case plan, there is no time frame. It just says to their discretion for my visitation. So now they're just ignoring me. Now that I have my shit together, and now that I'm really trying to get this going, they're just completely ignoring me and saying that my kids want nothing to do with me. Well, I'll tell you what, kids aren't born to hate. They're only not wanting to see their mother because of whatever those people are telling them. So CPS gave my kids to the tribe and gave my kids to Tanya, which is her name, to that woman who she should not have them at all. She should not. And my thing is, like I'm saying, I want the court order reinforced. This is not right. And not a lot of people know about customary tribal adoption, but I'm going to be the first one, and I want to change things so that nobody else has to go through what I'm going through.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to look something really fast.
Sorry if I get a little jumbled around. It's just a lot. I feel so strongly about this, so I get anxious and everything. It's just a lot of information. So I hope I kept you there and not confused you too much.
You're good. So I'm going to read what it says about that. Tribal customary adoption is a new permanency option for Indian children who are dependents of the California State Court. As described in Welfare Institutions Code, tribal customary adoption allows an Indian child who is dependent of the California state to be, or not independent, is a dependent of the California State Court to be adopted through the customs, law, and traditions of the child's tribe without the termination of parental rights of the child's parent. So you still have rights.
There are some rights, but what they think is that it's whatever they say, and it's not whatever they say. It's on the court order. You don't just get to take that back and use it as an anchor for me. I'm trying here. My kids may be 7 and 8, but they're not 28 and 27. They're still young enough. They need a chance to be able to know they have a loving mother and 2 siblings that love them.
Absolutely. Now, so being that you still have parental rights, this is interesting.
Exactly. Nobody really knows. Like, I can't find really an attorney that knows like what's up with this or anything, because it's just, there's too much of a gray area, and they should not be able to do this. Somebody needs to change something.
My attorney knows all about this.
Really?
Yeah, because I have Indian, and
okay.
And so this was something I didn't know anything about it, and because I got my kids back, we didn't have to go through this. But this was stuff that was brought up in my case.
And the thing is also is, she's supposed to be keeping them, the main portion of them being able to have the customary adoption is her keeping them connected with their culture. How do we know she's even taking them up there to events, to the tribe to do things, or teaching them about their culture and everything like that? I want to be updated. I want to know what's going on. I am the biological mother.
Right. I'm on my phone. I'm gonna message my boss right now and see what he says. Just give me 1 minute. So my question would be, do you handle tribal customary adoption stuff? Right?
Yes. Customary tribal adoption, yes. So I started a GoFundMe. I have a lot of people in the community helping me right now. I have a petition going to petition the courts to reinforce my visitation. And we need, there's a lot of drama going on in the midst of it all, but we need to all come together now. This is about the kids. This isn't about us. We can point fingers all day at who did this, who did that, whatever. And at the end of the day, we need reunification therapy. This is about my babies being able to know that they have loving parents, and or a loving mother at least, and weren't just abandoned by me.
Absolutely. Now, so they were babies when they were taken.
Yes.
Do you get any communication with them?
No, I'm not allowed to have pictures. I'm not allowed to have phone calls. My mom she just won't let me. My mom was allowed to visit them before, so I would send gifts with my mom, and my mom would just say it was from her, but she cut off my mom's visitation as well.
Is that allowed? Because I found out from the attorney that if the parental rights are removed, then the grandparents lose their rights as well.
Mm-hmm.
But due to the fact that you still have parental rights, there's still grandparent rights too.
Yes. And that's the thing, is my mom was at the meeting with us when we had a meeting with the tribe and Tanya, and we came to the agreement that we would never keep the family out of any of my family out of my kid's life, which is pretty much just my mom is who I have. And so that's what I'm saying. That's the problem. My mom has called up to the tribe to try to get help and any answers of why my kids have been ripped away from her when this is not supposed to be happening. And they just lead her on like, oh yeah, you know, that's not supposed to be happening. Oh, we'll help you. And then they stop talking to her.
Is the Indian on your side or dad's
They
side?
are on the father's side. So the paternal side.
Okay.
And actually the paternal grandma's father, so my kid's great grandfather, was the chairman leader of the tribe for very many years. So I really honestly feel like they just don't mess with her. You know, her dad was very respected in the tribe and just let her do whatever she wants. She thinks she's just a little Pomo princess, a little queen, and she can do everything that she wants because she says so. She has a lot of pride in this, and it's not fair. She makes it really about her when it should be about the kids.
Absolutely. Have you tried like reaching out to the tribe?
I have. I actually just called them again the other day. So she'll talk to me for a while, and then once, you know, I'm telling her I want to have a meeting or I'm getting close to her, I want things to actually happen, to take action, they start ignoring me again. Yeah. So I actually called to let her know that I called the ICWA director to let her know that I am working on having a petition signed for the court, and I am going to take it to the court, but they won't return my calls. So, you know, and at this point, all I've asked for is just a meeting. Can't we just have a meeting so we can all get on the same page, and so you guys can see my progress so that I can have my visitation, you know? And they just ignore me.
Do they hold like meetings?
They do. They have all kinds of stuff that goes on up there, but it's a gated facility. Everything is gated. You have to have membership to come in.
Does
So
she live on the
she lives in Napa. She owns a home.
what is it called?
What was that?
What's it called where the Indians, the land or whatever?
Oh, the reservation.
Reservation.
Yeah. Her family, she has a lot of family that lives up there, but she lives here in Napa. She has a house. Yeah. So, and originally my children were supposed to go to her and her husband, but her husband had left her in the midst of the adoption. She blames it on my kids, that the reason why he left, but he cheated on her and they got a divorce.
Where's the reservation?
In Middletown.
Up north?
Yes. Middletown, Lake County. It's Pomo, and they own Twin Pine Casino.
Huh. So, let me read a little bit more on this. Hold on. Okay. Do you know anything about an appeal?
So I know that I have gone down to the courthouse in Napa, and the self-help center kind of just turned me away. So I hadn't got any help there at all. So I wasn't sure how I could file an appeal. That's why I was trying to get in some type of attorney, because to get help on the legal aspects of it, because I don't really know, this is another part of the reason why I was so screwed being so young going through this, because I had no idea how the system worked.
Did you have a court-appointed attorney?
I did, and she was terrible. She degraded me. She told me I was never going to get my kids back. She spoke horrible to me. She's retired now, but I also know plenty of mothers in Napa County that had the same attorney that she treated the same way, and will vouch for what I'm saying, that she was a terrible attorney for the mothers.
Isn't that horrible?
Yes.
Go look on the kitchen table.
It's like, where's the support? My social worker was a rookie when she went through this. She was brand spanking new. And after I got my kids taken away, she got pregnant with her own child and had her own CPS investigation, and she no longer works there anymore. Yeah.
What was her investigation for?
I'm not sure. We didn't know the facts of it, but she definitely had one. She no longer works there. She moved to go be a therapist at some hospital. But she blatantly lied on the stand. She told me, well, I grew up in a bad lifestyle, but my life isn't shitty. And I had brought that up in court, and she totally lied. And the judge was not happy that she was talking to me about her personal life as a child either. Like, you don't do that to your clients when you're a social worker.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you remind me, just because I don't think everybody heard,
Yes.
what about the father of the children? What were his orders, and what happens with him now?
So the father never showed up to visitation, well, for a short amount of time, a short period of time when we were together and doing good. But besides that, when he wasn't with me, he never showed up to a visit. So his case plan is a little bit tougher than mine, because he never showed any progress, but he's supposed to do everything that I am: anger management, drug rehab, domestic violence, all of that stuff. He's done nothing. Yeah, and because the kids are with his mom, that door is always open.
What were your courses or classes you had to take?
Drug program, which I have graduated, domestic violence class, which I have completed, anger management, which I have completed, get off probation, which I did early, and drug testing, which I still need to do, but I have to pay like $100 for every drug test, and I don't want to start doing that until they know that I finished my classes. But I'm not going to dish out any more money when I have other children, unless you're going to tell me, okay, you test clean, you're going to get your visits. So I still have to do just that portion, but we need to all get on the same page here. That's the only thing that I haven't finished.
When was your last visit?
It was 5 years ago. Yeah. I've seen my kids in public, and I've had to turn the other way and just leave. I wasn't able to go up to them or anything. And you know how bad that hurts? To see your kids in public and not be able to do anything about it, and fear that it's going to be a drama scene that you don't want them exposed to.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. And looking at these. And the other thing that is sad is that they don't get to know their other siblings.
Exactly. My toddler looks so much like my oldest. He looks so much like his brothers, especially like my oldest son. And they know their other siblings, so why can't they know mine? They have 2 other siblings with the other, dad.
Right.
So what makes mine any different?
And does dad live with them?
He is homeless on the streets, all over the place. He'll go to jail and get clean, and then when he gets out, the other baby mama takes him back, and then he ends up leaving her again for drugs or steals her car or does something, and then she'll leave him again. He'll be back on the streets. It's a vicious cycle. It's a cycle.
But he's allowed to see the kids.
Yeah, every time that he's clean, he'll start calling his mom and stuff, and she'll let him talk to him, or they'll have little meetups here and there. He'll get to see them, but they'll do it like behind everybody's back and think that it's not. I have a picture too of him with my son when he was about 2 years old. There was not supposed to be any visits then, so how is he holding my son inside of a store on a case of beer? He has my son sitting on a case of beer. He was not supposed to be having him outside of unsupervised visits.
Let me see if my...
And then the other baby mama, she was my friend for a little while, and she told me, like I said, terrible things that go on in the house with my kids, that she calls them the F word when they're affectionate with each other, or the P word when they're crying about stuff. And she even made her own CPS report on the grandma. She called CPS, went down there, and made a huge report on her. And that's really serious, something really serious to do, and then just take back later on and say that there's no abuse going on. I can't get that out of my head, that there is abuse going on with my children.
And who's calling?
It was the other baby mama that called. She called CPS, and she called and told me and let me know that she called CPS.
How are your boys getting, I'm not sure if you're aware, how do they get disciplined?
I'm not sure. The girl told me that they're called names. Like I said, the F word when they're affectionate, or the P word when they're crying about things. So that just gives me a good enough picture to what happens when they get in trouble.
That's ridiculous. I don't like that P word at all.
No.
He hasn't messaged me back yet, but we'll find out.
Okay.
I'm excited. I feel like there's something that can be done.
That's what I'm saying. All these years, I know that there's something that can be done. I just need to fall into the right hands of help, somebody that knows what this is all about. It just can't be such a gray area.
And this would be a great question for our radio show. We have a radio show.
I did not know that.
Okay, so tomorrow night, I'm going to put you on the schedule.
Perfect.
I'm going to message my assistant right now. Can you call in tomorrow night?
Yes.
Okay, so when we get off here, message with my assistant, and see what time is available on the schedule.
Okay.
And we'll go from there, because I want you to ask my attorney this question.
Okay. Perfect. That's awesome. Any help, any place I can get heard, anything, I am all for it. And I will not be silent. I need help.
This will be loud.
Yes.
And shoot, I was gonna say something else. He has different programs that he does different. So let's say you can't afford him to fully take your case. He has different programs that he does where he helps your court-appointed attorney. He helps guide them. He educates. We also have 2 books that he's done. So my assistant will send you the links to those books that you can have for free.
Awesome.
So
thank you so much.
You're welcome. Is there anything else that we forgot?
I think we're good. I think I went over everything. Anybody that sees this that has any questions or comments or wants to give me advice, you can definitely message me. Like I said, I have a pretty big movement going on right now, so my inbox is pretty full, but I'll get back to people. I'm just trying to get the information that I can and, sort it all out so I don't miss anything that's important.
Let me look at the comments and see if there's any questions for you.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Do you know who Sarah Nichols?
I do. She'll probably contact you soon. There's a lot of people in Napa County that have gone through the CPS system that are probably going to end up contacting you through me because,
Awesome.
yeah, there's some stuff going on.
Perfect. She's very supportive of you.
Yay, Sarah.
Okay, so my assistant will be waiting for you. We'll need your phone number so that way when you call in, I can give it to the producer and he can recognize it and put you like up in the line, you know?
Okay.
So, is there anything else? What would you say to people that are watching and listening right now that have gone through this or are going through this or know nothing about it?
I just want to say don't give up. Don't ever give up. It could be 20 years from now, but don't ever give up on your babies. It doesn't matter what you've done, as long as you haven't physically really harmed your child. You know, addiction, it can be sorted out. Going through violence, it can be dealt with. It can be, you know, you can work that out, but don't ever give up on your kids. People make mistakes. Don't ever give up, and don't ever let anybody tell you that you're not good enough or that you can't do it. Because I have a lot of people, some people right now that are against me and what I'm doing, and it does bring me down sometimes. It gets to me sometimes, and then I got to turn around and use that fuel to really light that fire inside me and get this going and have justice served. So just don't ever give up.
Absolutely. Man, Cheyenne, you have I want to disconnect so I can see what you're actually, can we see what your two babies that you have right now look like? Is that okay?
Yeah, my husband's probably going crazy, so I'm gonna go out there and just be like, hey, I'm almost done.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm babysitting right now, so I have two other kids too. I'm almost done. They're gonna see the babes. Bubby just have food. Oh, Bubby pooped? Okay. Thank you, babe. So this is my 2-month-old. His name is Ray.
Oh my goodness.
He is the smiliest baby, the happiest, smiliest baby ever. He might even smile. Let me say hi.
Hi. He's so
There's a little
cute.
one. So that's Ray. He was just born July 13th. And this is my crazy toddler. Say hi. This is Khaled.
Oh my word.
I think he's ready for nap time. Say
Hi.
He looks just like his brothers. These are the two I'm babysitting.
Hi.